Hi guys, tonight we're going to talk about domain and range, and I know we've talked about domain and range before, but tonight we're going to look at domain and range not from a table of values but from a graph. And if you remember, domains are all our inputs or our x values in a function, and range is all our outputs or our y values in a function. So we're going to look at, again, domain and range, but this time, this is what I just said before, domain is the set of all possible x values in a function, and range is the set of all possible y values. So we're going to look at this relation right here. This relation is a function because all our x values are unique. Our inputs are mapped to exactly one output. So we can write the domain and range from this function using braces. And braces, which are kind of hard to draw sometimes, are just these little, they're these things right here. So it's just a little squiggly. Mine's not very good. And so our domain for this function, and I'm going to write my domain in order from least to greatest, is -3, -2, 0, 2, and 4. And our range are all the y values, and again, from least to greatest, our y values are 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. And we're going to close it with brackets. Or braces, sorry. Another way to show notation for domain and range is to use brackets. And brackets are just, they're straight instead of being curved. It looked like a, it looked like the letter C. And so we could do the same thing, except for when we use brackets, we just list the smallest number in the domain and the largest number in the domain. And that means we're including all the numbers between 3 and 4. And usually these are used with a graph. The range, same thing. We include, on the left is our smallest number to our largest number, and then we close these brackets off. So one thing I do want to mention is that this means, because it's a bracket, that 2 is included in the set. This is a bracket, so that means that 8 is including in the set. It's kind of like a closed circle. Well, it is like a closed circle on a number line or a graph. And if it was an open circle, we'll take a look at this one first, then we would use parentheses. Another way to show an inequality, or to show domain and range, is to use an inequality. And this is usually used, or always used, when we're looking at graphs, and that's what we're going to take a look at today. So keep in mind our domain is our x and our range is our y. So if we look at our smallest x value and our largest x value, our domain is x is greater than -3 and x is less than 4. Using this same relation up here for the range is our y values. Our smallest y is 2, our largest y is 8. So y is greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 8. And again, this inequality notation we're going to be using for the graphs below. So I'm going to skip over to number 2 first before we do example number 1. I need to list the domain and range of this function, and I know it's a function because it passes the vertical line test. So I'm going to box this function in. I'm going to box the domain, and the domain is our x values. So our x values go from -3 all the way over here to +2. So our smallest x value is -3. Our largest x value is +2. So since this is a closed circle, that means that -3 is included. So x is going to be greater than or equal to -3. This one is an open circle, so that means 2 is not included. So x is going to be less than 2. We're going to do the same thing with our range. There is my lowest y value, and this is my highest y value. So my y's are going from -2 all the way up to 4. So my lowest y value is -2. My highest y value is +4. Again, since this is a closed circle, it's going to be y is greater than or equal to -2. Since this is an open circle, y is going to be less than +4. So these are my y values, and I could do the same thing for my x values. My x values go from -3 all the way up to +2. So that's what the domain and range looks like when we have endpoints. The reason I skipped number 1 and went on to number 2 is because in this example there is one endpoint right here, but this line or this graph goes continuously in this direction. So we're going to do the same thing for the domain and the range. So my domain are my x values. My x values go from 5 being my highest number, and we're looking at the domain, and it's a closed circle, so that means x is less than or equal to 5, but I don't know what my smallest number is because this keeps on going and going and going. So we're going to call that it goes on for infinity, and it goes in the negative direction. So my x values are everything that is less than -5, and that includes, or less than +5, and that includes 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. We can keep on going on and on. And we're going in the negative direction, so that's where we get the negative infinity. My highest y value is right here, and that's 2. And again, it's a closed circle, so y is less than or equal to 2. And again, it keeps on going. Here's my y-axis. It includes all of these numbers right here, so it keeps on going and going and going. So we're going to call that negative infinity as well. It's every single number that's less than 2. And how many numbers are less than 2? It's infinite. So when we're doing graphs, or when we're finding the domain and range on graphs, that's when we want to use inequality symbols. If we're looking for domain and range from a relation, which is just a set of ordered pairs, or from a table, that's when we just need to list it using braces. So in example number 3, our domain is all our x values, and I know this is a function because all my x values are different, and I'm going to list them in order from least to greatest. So -3, -2, 0, 2, and 4. My range are all my y values, and if you look here, 0 is listed twice, or there's 2 ordered pairs that have 0 in their as their y values or their output. We're just going to list that once. So -4, 0, we don't have to list 2 zeros, just 1 0, 5, and 12 is my range. So again, we just need to list 0 one time when we're listing it right there. Okay, go ahead and list the domain and range for number 4. Pause the video and then check your answer. Okay, I know this is a function. My domain are my x values and they're all different. And again, I'm going to list them in order from least to greatest. So -2, 0, 3, and 10. And my range are all my y values from least to greatest, -3, 0, 7, and 21. Okay, now it's your turn to find the domain and range of the graph in multiple choice question number 1. And number 2, what is the domain? Write your answer as an inequality. So for number 1, sorry, both of these endpoints have solid circles. So that means that your inequalities are going to be less than or equal to and greater than or equal to, and that'll help you figure out your answer right here. There was a typo in letter C, so just be careful, I've fixed it. And then for number 2, you're going to write the domain and range as an inequality, just like we did in number 2 in the previous example. Don't forget to put your answers in on the Google form, and if you have any questions, please ask them there. Have a good night.